welcome to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Entertainment Network. I am your host, Sarah. It is Tuesday, and I am delighted to be with you as always, bringing you another author interview. As we get started, I do want to remind you to please like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you are either listening to or watching this episode on. That really does help the algorithm, and it's very much appreciated. Also, if you are listening to this on audio, that's great. If that's your preference, keep doing that. But just as a reminder, these are also available as video episodes as well, in case you would like to see what the author that I'm interviewing actually looks like. That's an option. It's been an option for a while, but I never really took the time to remind people about that, and I thought I should probably do that. So it's an option, but it's completely up to you. Audio, cool. Video, cool. Another reminder, if you would like to help the podcast and the network as a whole in a monetary fashion, you can do so by going to gsmcpodcast.info. There you can leave a tip or a donation. If you want, you can also leave a question or a comment. I'm always happy to engage with those. I really love hearing from you all, so you can do that there as well. You'll see that link, gsmcpodcast.info, in the video next to me, but you'll also see it scrolling throughout the episode. So gsmcpodcast.info if you want to help in a monetary fashion, both this podcast and the network as a whole. As always, your support is greatly appreciated, no matter what form that support comes in. I hope you're having a great week so far. I hope you had a good weekend. I hope the weather is doing something positive wherever you are. Maybe it's getting a little warmer, or I don't know, maybe you're enjoying the cold, but it's so you're hoping that it stays cold. But I hope you're having some good weather situations wherever you are. Our weekend was quiet. My husband, we thought we had escaped the cold that I've had for a couple of weeks that I'm finally now getting over, but no, sadly, it just was lying in wait for him, and it finally jumped out and snagged him, so he's pretty miserable. So he's miserable. The dogs are good. Old man dog is old man dog. He's just, oh my gosh, he's become such a curmudgeon. He really is an old man dog now. Like, he's so annoyed with this new feisty puppy that he's not mean to the puppy. He just doesn't want to be near it. Near him. He's like, no, too energetic, too much. He's too much. I'm good, thanks. I'll just be over here being old and curmudgeonly. But he's fine. He's good. The puppy is a puppy. There's a reason that they're cute. Because there are days when he sorely tests my patience, but we're working on things. As always, we continue to work on things, and he follows me everywhere. He's an adorable little shadow. I love the sound his little paws make on our tile floor. That is the best ASMR for me, so I enjoy that. Can't complain about that part of it. There's plenty of things to complain about, but there's also lots and lots of things to be happy about with a new puppy, and cuteness and snuggles and little puppy feet following you everywhere are definitely up there. He is supposedly sleeping right now, so hopefully he's doing that and not going to set up a ruckus during the episode, but we'll see. We'll deal with it as it comes. Let's talk about a book. In particular, let's talk about Can't Shake the Dust by C.H. Hooks, and I will give you a description of said book. Buckle up for a high-octane ride through the South's shadowed heart. In Can't Shake the Dust, Little Bill Lemon III stands at the crossroads of a troubled legacy. From the notorious Monkey Palace, his grandfather's bar, to the enigmatic history of his father Wild, to his mother's questionable dog breeding business, Little takes to the dirt track every Saturday night, racing to outpace the looming shadows of his family's past. Behind the wheel of a ramshackle do-it-yourself car, in a place where scarcity reigns, be it money, jobs, food, or even soap to cleanse the stubborn Georgia red dirt, Little teeters on the edge of self-destruction and redemption. As he navigates life on the fringe of southern backroads, the weight of his ancestry threatens to pull him under. While the checkered flags may elude him on the track, Little possesses the heart of a true champion. Readers will find themselves on their feet in the stands, rallying for him as he plunges headfirst into a turbulent voyage of self-discovery and survival. Can't Shake the Dust is an exhilarating tale of resilience, tenacity, and the indomitable spirit of those who dare to race against all odds. And again, that is a description of Can't Shake the Dust by C.H. Hooks. It is in some ways a coming of age book, at least from Little's perspective. The description that you just heard kind of makes it sound like it's all from Little's point of view, but it really isn't. It's told from 3 points of view: Little and his parents, Wild and Nanny. We get those 3 points of view. The grandfather, Senior, is in there as well, but we don't specifically get his point of view, but we get bits of his story and his influence on the family, because this really is a story of generations. It's a story of family and family of origin, and how all of those things affect us, how the place where we live affects us and affects those relationships and the family of origin, etc. So for Little, it is a coming of age story in many ways. He's 14, which is hard enough, but he experiences bullying. He goes to a Catholic school where he's on scholarship. There's a lot of different things going on in his life. He's trying to figure out what it means to be the third generation of dirt track racers, and he's not terribly great at it. He has a lot of issues, so he's trying to figure things out, and trying to kind of figure out those generational cycles, making choices. Is he going to continue those generational cycles? Is he going to try to break those generational cycles? And then we also get the parents' point of view, and we get their place in those generational cycles, and how they're dealing with a lot of the choices that they've made, how their pasts are now affecting their present and their future, and what choices they're going to make in the future. There's some complicated relationships. There's a lot of different layers in terms of family, generations, place, etc. So rather than me continuing to tell you about it, let's let CH talk to you about the book and the process of writing the book. Again, it's called Can't Shake the Dust. The author is C.H. Hooks. Hi, CH. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Sarah, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. We're going to talk about your novel, Can't Shake the Dust. But before we do that, would you just take a few minutes to introduce yourself? Let my listeners get to know you a bit.
Sure. My name is C.H. Hooks, and I'm the author of the novels Can't Shake the Dust that just came out through Regal House in October of 2024, and then the novel Alligator Zoo Park Magic from 2019. Can't Shake the Dust is a story about three generations of the Lemon family. They are all involved in dirt track racing in the American South. And family, of course, comes with its complications. In this case, the Lemon family is no stranger to complications or struggles and family
Yes.
strife. And at the same time, we're following the protagonist, Little, as he kind of starts his career as the third generation of this dirt track racing family, and also kind of grows up at the same time, or deals with the things that come with adolescence, and also finding out who he is. So hopefully that helps. A little bit of a guide as we jump into this thing.
Yeah. Now, say the name of your first book again.
Alligator Zoo Park Magic.
It sounds like Mad Libs. I love it.
It was a wild one for sure.
Yeah. I think people would pick that one up just for the title. But you've given a little bit of an overview for Can't Shake the Dust. What was
Yeah.
your initial jumping off point or inspiration for the book?
I was born in Northeast Florida, but grew up in South Georgia. And there's just this kind of strange, different culture that exists in this space. It's Southern, it's kind of wild. It's uh, arguably, and using the term wild, untamed would probably be a better way of putting it. And I guess all of my experiences between living in South Georgia, Savannah, Northeast Florida, going to, demolition derbies as a kid, seeing some dirt track racing as a kid, and then also just some of the different strangeness of that landscape in South Georgia. The Monkey Palace was a real bar.
Oh, wow.
Uh, oh yeah, and so all of these things kind of combined with this idea of what does it mean to grow up, and gosh, I mean, even down to being a Protestant kid in a Catholic school in South Georgia, was a little bit of my experience as well. At least
Yeah.
4 years of my experience. So yeah, all those things and the idea of um, what would we give to win, right? And these three generations of this family, what will they give away in order to be winners?
Mm,
And who is it most important to? I
yeah.
guess thematically, these are the things that were in my head as I wrote it.
Okay. And it's a coming of age story for little, maybe. I mean, coming of age can be for any age, and I feel like the three generations all have a little growing up to do, but
Yeah.
but little, especially coming of age. So what about this setting specifically really facilitated a coming of age story?
I mean, certainly borrowed from my own experiences of being that kid in South Georgia who um, is kind of misplaced in some ways. And um, yeah, as far as coming of age goes specifically, we all hit that point at different different years. And like you said, even Little's dad in this book needs to come of age. He still feels like he is Little's age, but he's not. And that realization is stark for some. Maturity is a strange thing, and maturity and our realization that we need it can certainly come at different times.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Really like what CH said about maturity comes at different ages, which is so very true. And I don't think it just comes and we're suddenly mature. No, I mean, I think we're constantly maturing, right? So it makes sense that this is certainly a coming of age story for a little, but I've spoken before with other authors about coming of age stories can happen at a lot of different ages. And I think in some ways that it really is true for Wild and Nanny, at least in the sense that they are trying to figure things out as they are moving forward. A little bit, like I said at the beginning, they're just trying to figure out what all of these choices and life decisions mean for their life as they move forward. But we're going to go ahead and take our first break of this podcast. When we come back, we'll be talking more about generations and belonging and what all of that means, especially in terms of this book. You're tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I will be right back.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast. As we get back into segment 2, second and final reminder that you can support the podcast and the network as a whole in a monetary fashion by going to gsmcpodcast.info. As I said before, you can leave a tip or a donation, you can leave a question or a comment. It not only helps this podcast, but as I said, the network as a whole. All of your support is greatly appreciated. That link again is gsmcpodcast.info. So welcome back and to this conversation with C.H. Hooks. We are talking about his book, Can't Shake the Dust, and we were talking about coming of age, belonging, maturing, etc. Let's go ahead and return to the conversation with C.H. We do have the three generations here, and often in especially rural situations. I know my tiny hometown in Western Montana, the more generations you're in a place, the more cemented you are in that place. But I feel
Right.
like even with being the third generation in this place, Little's existence, he still feels very much as an outsider.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and so, can you talk a little bit about just that experience for him and how it plays into his story?
Sure. I mean, being the outsider in the space in which he knows nothing else. I mean, at that point, it's just a feeling, right?
Mm,
And it's inescapable. And certainly for him, um, he's not even necessarily sure that he wants to race.
yeah.
And so on top of feeling misplaced as a kid in a school where he's not necessarily the norm, right? He exists outside of a norm there, feeling like he potentially exists outside of a norm in his own family, and then feeling like he exists outside of a norm in his own town. I think that all of that, this feeling of, having this last tether kind of holding you to a space and to a family and to a place, makes you feel alien, right? It makes you feel like you're kind of floating in this nebulous space outside. I mean, you're in your own orbit at that point. And so when that last bind starts to break, which arguably could be his father, um, what's going to rescue you from kind of just
Mhm.
um, feeling completely and totally untethered?
Yeah. Yeah. The story is told from multiple points of view, from Little, his father Wild, his mother Nanny. Did you ever consider adding grandfather's point of view as well in there? I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I'm not sure I want into that brain, but
Right. No, and I wasn't sure that I wanted it either. When we write fiction, especially when we're writing in first person, it often feels like, especially in this case, writing from multiple perspectives, it feels like you are just essentially living in multiple personalities,
Hmm.
because you have to kind of live into their brain. Um, I wrote this book 4 different times, which started in I think I started in first person, wrote it in third person, then wrote it in first person again from a different perspective. Took it all the way back to the drawing board to do it in the three different perspectives. And finally, it ends up in its final form from three first person perspectives. And uh, I really, at that point, it felt like I had everybody covered from
Hmm.
the viewpoints that I wanted, from the points of view that I wanted, and felt like the story needed. I kind of felt like um, Senior, the grandfather, kind of needed to be a little bit of a mystery.
Mm.
We didn't need to know all of his intentions. And I think every reader needs a little bit of mystery in order to want to continue to read, in order to have some tension and really to have that urgency of pulling a reader through a story. And so I think on some level, the mystery of what it is that he's trying to achieve and what he's trying to do, um, and what's going on in his head and why, right? If it's a question of motivation, was necessary. And it was
Yeah.
necessary to have him kind of distant in that way.
Okay. Makes sense. So you wrote this book four times, which is, I mean, you could say that's a really incredible exercise, but
Oh man,
I,
yeah.
I would imagine that you know these characters very, very well at this point. Did
Too,
they,
too well.
maybe, yeah, but when you set out to write a book, do you have a really good character sketch of each person before you start writing? Does that evolve as you write? I imagine it probably each these characters probably evolved quite a bit through this process for you.
I feel like starting a new book is almost like, gosh, what would be a way of maybe maybe starting a dating process, right?
Mm,
Um,
okay.
I feel like as you write the character, you get to know more of them. As you write them, they kind of reveal themselves to you. You inhabit, again, when you're writing in first person, you're kind of inhabiting their brain. And all the backstory, right? Even the stuff that doesn't show up in the book, all the back writing, the history of these characters kind of reveals itself in some ways as you're writing it. So for me, it's more of a fluid process. I don't sit there and I feel like I would never start writing if I just sat there and tried to investigate everything that I
Mm-hmm.
could possibly know about this person. I think that sometimes that probably is a big inhibitor for people from starting the process of just sitting down and writing. Um, and so, do I have an idea for a story in my head? Absolutely. But am I going to know everything about that character yet? No, because that's part of it too. As you get to know these characters, I feel like the story kind of naturally expands as you get to know their motivations, as you get to know things about them, it opens up new doors for you to kind of walk through and
Mm.
kind of explore a whole new space of a story. And without that, and yes, I mean, there's a danger in doing that because the story could just be just this ever expanding universe, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, as if you have the constraints, if you have maybe even the ending in your head first, then all you're doing is finding a pathway to that. And so each time you walk through one of those doors, that kind of new expansiveness of character and what you're learning, as long as you know what you're leading toward, then you can go off on these tangents. You can kind of find these new drivers of story, these little gas stations for it, as George Saunders would say. But they can all kind of lead you back to that ending that you're wanting to get to ultimately.
And in terms of the characters and the 3 points of view, can you touch briefly on each of those points of view of the character? What might resonate with those characters for readers?
Sure, absolutely. For little, um, you're looking through the eyes of this 14, nearly 15-year-old boy who is learning more every day, not only about who he is or where he's come from, but also what he wants in life. And, at that age, there are a lot of different factors that can take you off that course. Um, but certainly one of those would be learning more about your family and kind of the inner workings. And um, you start to realize that a kid of that age has, I mean, in order to even be an adolescent, you're starting to realize that your parents are not perfect, that the world that you're coming from is not perfect. And you're learning to accept it with those imperfections, or you're learning that you want to change it. And so I think for him, he's trying to figure out what it is that he needs to change,
Mhm.
uh, because he's seeing firsthand where the path that he's on could lead. So that's that perspective.
Little, as you can see, and as I kind of mentioned before, is trying to figure out what needs to be changed, what can be changed. Are there generational cycles that he can affect or change or influence or break even? And so that's Little's perspective. We're going to take our second break of this episode. When we come back, we're talking about the characters of Wild and Nanny and what about them might resonate with readers. You're tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I'll be right back.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and my conversation with C.H. Hooks. We are talking about his novel Can't Shake the Dust, which is told from 3 different points of view. Before the break, he was talking about the point of view of Little and what might resonate about that character with readers. So now we're going to move on to the other points of view, which are Little's parents, Wild and Nanny.
Wild, the dad, you're kind of seeing the moment of unhinge.
Mhm.
You're seeing someone on a path of destruction and also just desperate for redemption in some way. They want to win something because they feel like they've lost so much.
Yeah.
Because they more than likely feel like they've never had another option for a path in life. They were presented with one and they knew that they had one. And then for Nanny, the mother, she's learning later in life, really, what it is that she needs, not
Mm-hmm.
just wants. Like it's not just about desire, it's about some form of fulfillment or learning to kind of build something new that feels like it nourishes or replenishes or um, creates a future instead of something that just feels like it's for the moment and potentially um, falling apart.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, any particular research that you did for the story?
Research was mining my own memories in my brain, and then doing some research about a space that existed as a kid that no longer exists. That was the Monkey Palace in Albany, Georgia. And I knew about it growing up. It was kind of a running joke in town. But then you realize later, as as you do, as you get out of adolescence, that holy crap, this place actually existed and these things happened. And then also research, of course, into dirt track racing.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up, watching it or going to it, but um, I didn't drive those cars, so I needed to kind of learn more about um, the function of this and like what the races the really like what a season of this would look like
Mm-hmm.
and so that was research as well. Um, yeah, I think that was probably the bulk of it.
No. Dirt track racing to me is fascinating because these are kids who probably don't have a driver's license yet because they are
Right.
14. And yet
Yeah.
we're like, hey, go ahead and drive this possible piece of crap car that might blow up at any moment.
Yeah, oh, totally. And the rules on age vary state by state.
Yeah.
But again, this is fiction, so I can adjust back if I want to and have
Yeah.
a 14-year-old in the pilot seat of this thing. So yeah.
Well, we both grew up in rural areas. I'm sure we know people who were driving. Like,
Oh
my
yeah.
brother-in-law started driving himself to school at 12. I think my
Right,
husband
right.
was somewhere around that age. So just,
Yeah, my mom started teaching me to drive stick shift when I was 10. So
yeah. Yeah. Or if you've got fields, you're driving in the fields. Yeah. All kinds of reasons why
right.
kids learn early.
Yeah.
Um, Understanding that everyone comes to a book with their own mental state, their own, their own life experiences. So they're going to bring their own self to that book. But what do you as the author kind of hope people might take away from the book?
I hope that people take away from the book perhaps the idea that anyone is capable of extending some level of grace. Um, like could be the 14-year-old child, could be the dad, could be the mother, could be the grandfather. That um, there is also, unfortunately, a level of self-responsibility that comes with achieving that. And this idea of us needing to be able to kind of clean ourselves up or pick ourselves up in order to achieve that. So I would say that's kind of the big takeaway, right? And that these wild spaces still exist. These sports are still going.
Mm,
These people, perhaps, really the biggest. I would hope that the characters are written in a way that you could be walking down the street after reading this book at some point and feel like you've just possibly seen Wild, right? Walking down the street. Perhaps you've seen Little with Nanny in the grocery store,
yeah.
That's ultimately the idea. I want the characters to continue to live off the page.
Okay. Yeah. Which a good book is going to stick with you. The characters are going to stick
Right.
with you. So yeah, absolutely. Um, the book has been described as Southern Gothic. Is that a genre that you agree with? Do you like that term? Resonate with you?
I don't know. I know that Flannery O'Connor absolutely hated the term um, Southern Gothic. I think that the term gets overused a lot.
Mm,
I think in the advent of hashtags and social media book love, um, I think that the term has kind of gotten diluted too, right? So obviously there are the intonations of, or the kind of hints of religion in there, which is I guess one of the tenets of or one of the elements of Southern Gothic. There is, I guess, the level of grotesque, right? That there are broken human beings. There are certainly themes of brokenness in there. So I would argue that it fits the bill for being labeled Southern Gothic. But do I set out to write Southern Gothic?
Okay.
I'm not sure. I think I just set out to write a book of the American South that I know or have known. The people, the characters, anything that I write, more than likely I'm borrowing some element of that from everyday life. If I'm out on the street or in the world, I'm seeing something, some behavior, something that someone is doing that could potentially reflect a new character, right? So I don't know that Southern Gothic is necessarily the description so much as perhaps just life in a specific region. But I think it extends out further than that too. I don't know. I think that some of the things that are in this book would be arguably universal. I think that you could be in rural Portugal and see someone or a family that is struggling with similar things that this family is struggling with. And a family dynamic that would be similar to this as well.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too how phrases like Southern Gothic or many other phrases, they obviously they're going to grow and evolve, but sometimes they almost take on a life of their own, especially in a world like you said with hashtags and social media and people to start throwing things around. I think it starts to mean different things to every person who encounters that phrase.
Exactly. I think you're right. Someone out there thinks that they just refer to like vampire novels set in the South.
Yeah. Which sure. I mean, Gothic really does kind of bring up that sort of Addams Family kind of aesthetic. Yeah.
Yeah, the old world Gothic versus Southern. But yeah,
right.
I think that when we try and label lit, when we try and kind of over label lit, it eventually starts to lose some of the punch. And sometimes you just want to be able to read a book without a label too, and just kind of be able to take it for what you actually as the reader take away from it.
Yeah. And I know people want to kind of before they start reading know what they're getting themselves into, but I appreciate that more and more we're kind of crossing genres or using multiple genres for books because I don't think they all fit very neatly anymore into certain boxes.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Do you like when genres or books tend to cross genres, be included in more than one genre? I kind of like the complexity of genres anymore. I just don't think books really fit into any one genre or box. And also, when you hear the phrase Southern Gothic, what does it bring to mind for you? I feel like you could ask 5 people and you'd get 5 different answers. Gothic for me brings up very specific images, and then Southern Gothic, I don't know, for some reason I throw in alligators to my image of Gothic. I realize that's not accurate for most Southern Gothic books, but that's what tends to come to mind with that phrase. Anyway, questions to ponder as we take our next break. When we come back, we'll be talking about what CH is currently working on. You're tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I will be right back. Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and my conversation with author C.H. Hooks. Before the break, C.H. and I were talking about Southern Gothic and what that means, what that genre references, how genres are changing, etc. Let's go ahead and return to the conversation with C.H. Are you working on anything new currently?
Yes. Let's see, what all? I'm working on an adaptation of Can't Shake the Dust with a screenwriter.
Oh,
Just finished up a new novel manuscript. Again, involving some of my early experiences, which would be growing up with grandparents that own a mortuary. And then I am working on a screenplay of a series. So I'm staying busy and then
sounds like
teaching
it. Yeah.
classes, of course. I teach at Flagler College in St. Augustine, in the creative writing department there. And I also direct our storytellers author in residence program at Flagler College. So we bring in nationally and internationally known authors to spend a semester with us at Flagler.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
We could veer off on a total tangent there, but
Oh yeah, totally.
yeah. So it sounds like you've written in various capacities a lot. Is it something that you grew up wanting to do? Did you kind of come to that as an adult? What was that path like for you?
Always wrote, but never with an intent of doing that. I drew a lot as a kid. I loved, comic books and reading and all this stuff. But I just continued to write in my journals kind of because I had to. As I grew up and even into my early and mid 20s, I just kept assembling all this work in journals and like pocket journals.
Mhm.
And then at some point that became me collecting those thoughts and ideas and typing them up. And suddenly I had all of this work in a computer. And it became almost this unavoidable thing. It almost just happened over time, that apparently I've been working on a kind of not singular idea, but work that could be kind of like brought into that and focused. And of course rewritten, but it became the first novel project that I wrote on.
Interesting.
And so I don't know that it was it wasn't like an early inception. I didn't have that idea early to become an author or writer. I know that some people do, and I'm kind of envious of them. I was like, man, if I could have just started and known what I was working on when I was a kid, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But that wasn't my path.
Well, and it gives you different perspectives, right? I mean, everybody comes at it differently. So
Oh yeah.
from that perspective and from the fact that you also teach writing, what main piece of advice would you give to someone who's thinking about writing a novel?
Someone who is thinking about writing a novel, don't do it.
Just back away slowly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Don't torture yourself. No, I think, man, read. Read as much as possible. I think that is probably the biggest piece of advice I could give. Read as much as you possibly can, and then just write because you enjoy it, if that's a thing. Don't do it because you want this to be a career or something like that. I'm afraid that a lot of people set out on this because they see it as like this career that they want to do. They want to write books. They want to just focus on the craft for as long as you can. Focus on making your writing the best that it can be, and then find people around you and build a community of people that are interested in the same thing. If you can build that community and have those people and surround yourself with those people that love to read as well and also love to write, then I think you have a much higher chance of building a career and making something successful.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You mentioned reading, and you've got Hemingway quoted behind you. So
Oh, yeah.
when you take time to read just for you, not necessarily for a project or research or anything like that, go to authors and genres.
Oh man, I'm reading a ton of nonfiction right now. Anytime that I'm working on a project in fiction, I try and avoid reading fiction,
Yeah.
because of course we become a sponge, especially when we're when we're generating a lot of words. It's kind of difficult to read fiction because um, the tendency is to kind of mimic, right? So I read nonfiction whenever I'm working on fiction projects. Right now, I've been reading um, actually a lot of cooking because my fiction project that I just finished up um, actually has a layer of that in it. So Julia Child, I've been reading about her life in France. And that's been really, really profoundly interesting to see something that um, her experiences post World War II in France kind of mimic in some ways our reality currently in the United States. Um, it's kind of intergenerational strife politically between her and her own father is interesting. And then, of course, just her pursuit of her passions. So that book has been really profoundly interesting to me right now.
Yeah, I think she was a really interesting woman that we know maybe a lot about, but I also feel like we don't know
Yeah, I'd
much.
say we've learned a lot in the last 10 years.
Yeah, yeah, but really
Yeah,
interesting woman.
yeah.
You said cooking, and it immediately made me think of cooking blogs. You know, when I just want the recipe. Sometimes I just want the recipe.
Oh man, it drives me crazy.
Give me the
Personal,
jump to recipe button,
yes,
please.
yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it drives me nuts. It drives you to go back to cookbooks.
Yeah, yeah.
At
I
least in
mean,
my opinion, it makes me go back to even like these old community cookbooks that people assembled.
I love those.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We've got a library of them right now.
I am Lutheran, grew up Lutheran, so there's a lot of Jello in those
Oh yeah.
from
Yeah.
my
Oh
community.
yeah.
It's a lot of Jello and a lot of hot dish.
Uh-huh.
Um,
A lot of
but
casseroles.
yes,
Yeah.
I really do love community cookbooks. There's some incredibly good recipes in there and some incredibly insane recipes in a lot of them, and it's good. But yeah, growing up Lutheran, lots of Jello, and some of those are really good. Some of those are not so good. Lots of casseroles made with cream of something soup. Hot dish if you're in Minnesota. We can argue about that, but we're not going to. So yeah, I don't know. They're a lot of fun, but I'm gonna contemplate Lutheran recipes as we go to our final break of this episode. When we come back, we'll be wrapping things up with CH. You're tuned into the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I'll be right back. Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and my conversation with author C.H. Hooks. Before the break, we were talking about, well, a variety of things, but concluding with community cookbooks and I can't say my love of all things Jello, because there's certainly some Jello that I do not love, but over the break I was contemplating tater tot casserole and how I really want tater tot casserole now, but I'll have to contemplate whether I can make it here and it would taste the same. I don't think I'm going to find cream of something soup in quite the same form here, so That's gonna be my that's my project. Figure out tater tot casserole in Portugal. It's a random project, but hey, it's mine. Let's go ahead and go back to this conversation, the conclusion of this conversation with CH. I know you have a website, so share where people can find the website and any social media that you're active on.
Sure. Yeah, my website is just chhooks.com. I'm on Instagram, chhooks, of course. I'm on Blue Sky now.
Yep.
I've gotten away from the whole Twitter thing. And that would just be under my name as well. I think that's about it. I'm sure there's a Facebook out there, but I just never get on there. So
Sure. Blue Sky is interesting just in terms of the username because they're so freaking long. Like they take up half your
Yeah.
character count just by tagging someone.
Yeah, they're incredibly
Random.
long. Yeah.
But thank you for those. CH, is there anything that we haven't covered that you wanted to make sure that you highlighted during our time together?
No, not necessarily. It's kind of nice just to talk about it and keep it fresh. And yeah, it's also an interesting moment of self-reflection to think about what I am working on currently. So I feel kind of busy, and when I think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a reason that I feel busy right now. So
It sounds like you should, yes.
yeah,
Yeah. And I'm impressed that you're managing to keep everything straight because we've got so
I'm not sure that I am.
and you're talking about, well, you seem to be talking about the book that we're talking about.
That's good. That's good. All right. So I stayed on topic. That's solid. Good
There
stuff.
wasn't a moment when I thought, wait, did I completely miss
Yeah.
the trip to Africa? Or-
Oh man. But yeah, so thank you. I appreciate you having me on here, Sarah. It's been a pleasure talking with you. And
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about the book, but also about writing and everything else. So thank you so much.
my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you again to CH for joining me to talk about Can't Shake the Dust. If you are a fan of novels that explore some of the harder aspects of life and relationship, there's humor there. It's on the maybe the darker side, but I mean, not like dark, but it's a little bit darker if you enjoy that type of humor. And if you enjoy coming of age, multiple points of view, then you definitely want to check this out. There are, as you heard, some really odd aspects to this novel that you might want to explore, and Little's grandfather and his bar is just one of them. But this is something that you want to check out. You definitely should do that, along with CH's other book, the name of which keeps eluding me. I love it and I can't remember it to save my life, but you can just look him up and find that book and go check out his works. And so thank you to him for taking the time to talk to me. Thank you, of course, as always, for joining me for this episode. I hope that you will join me for the next episode. I have returning author Victory Wither-Kay. We're going to be talking about The Demon. This is a sequel to the book The Girl. We talked about that the first time she was on the podcast. And this is, I have so many questions. If you've read The Girl, maybe you've already read The Demon as well, but or maybe you haven't read either of them, but definitely come. And I really want to find out the progression from the first book to the second book, and like I said, I have questions. So join me for that conversation as I ask those questions. In the meantime, if you are a fan of this podcast, please do, of course, like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you are either listening to or watching the episode on. Again, it really helps the algorithm, gets it out to more readers, etc. Also, leaving a positive review is incredibly helpful. If you could take just a moment and leave a review, that would be wonderful. Thank you for that. Thank you for all the support that you give the podcast. Like I said, no matter what form that support takes, maybe it's in following on social media. If you do want to follow the podcast on social media, you can find it on Facebook, X, Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok. So come find the podcast, by extension me. Ask me any questions, tell me what you're reading, etc., etc. I'm going to let you get back to your day, to whatever you're doing. I hope your week is going really well. Weather's doing what you want, etc. All those good things. But of course, What I'm really saying is that I hope no matter what is going on in your life right now, that you are afforded plenty of time to get yourself lost in a good book. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you next time.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to